Hello, everybody. It is the 24th, and I actually don't know what sections I said I was ready, and I was not ready.
I knew the moment he didn't prep you at all, I was like, this is going to be hilarious.
I knew it was the 24th, but I couldn't remember like what sections.
Listen, November's gone and I'm dying, so I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you should clarify that because obviously people are going to notice something's a little different this week.
I think I'm having an allergy attack, but just in case, I'm isolating. So here we are.
Welcome to me since March.
Also, just in case, it's been nice knowing you all. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the support.
This has been an amazing and wild ride. I never would have thought it possible, but yeah, it's probably fine. But
We shouldn't be laughing at that.
Yeah, it probably is just allergies. My allergies have been acting up as well, so.
And Krista, we should point out that you are fine. You just you plan poorly.
I planned poorly. We even had a little extra time today because Wendell couldn't get in till like 2, and I was like, that's fine. Like, I'll go up and, start the laptop like normally. And then Windows was like, no, updates, just updates all the time. So I'm on my other computer, which is in an office I share with my husband. So I can't have the camera on right now.
I feel like if I were a little bit, more well prepared and a little bit more amazing for situations when Krista doesn't have the camera, we could just have another angle on Stacy, and whenever Krista's talking, I could just switch to that angle, and it's just, the immovable, immovable mannequin head.
It's just the mannequin talking.
So one of those face rigs would be great for that.
It's
yeah, like the cat.
Well, that, but she doesn't have a camera, so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It has to map to the.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a government and security today. That's the missing information.
The other missing information is this episode of the news is brought to you by Linode. So you can get free Linode credits through the end of the month. Linode's got a lot of really amazing things. They are sponsoring tons of people, and they're writing tons of great tutorials. They're sponsoring Devember for us. And so with Devember, if you want to get into software development, maybe dabble or, retrain job skills, that's kind of a thing. Check out the Devember thread on the Level1 forums. We've already had a lot of people sign up. There's some really great prizes. We're gonna sort of judge you at the end of December, but now's never been a better time to build your homepage, build a blog, build actually something worthwhile other than that. But you do you. It's fine. Linode's got a lot of really cool stuff. So with that, we can dive into the first story, I guess, because stuff. The FCC takes spectrum from an auto industry in a plan to supersize Wi-Fi. So this is a little convoluted. It sounded like the auto industry was saying, we've got this relatively small amount of spectrum that is adjacent to the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi, like the 5 point whatever Wi-Fi. And it's not really enough for car-to-car communication, but we haven't figured out what we're going to do with that. And Ajit Pai was like, yeah, let's use that for Wi-Fi. And the auto industry was like, wait, we didn't say we weren't going to use it. We just said it wasn't enough bandwidth for car-to-car communication. Was that your take on it?
Well, I think there's something unspoken here. But so they said that 99.9 something, there's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of cars that actually have this. I don't know why that is, but the thing that's suspicious to me is why are they pushing this through? Because they talk about how at the end of a lame duck presidency, the FCC basically just stops doing anything until the next one comes in because, we don't want to just undo stuff. But Pi is pushing this through. So is this something that, the internet companies have oh, we got all these new routers, but you have to push this through right now, or this is wasted R&D. Go do this immediately. I wonder if there's something like that there. Because why would you do this? It seems like such a small thing to do.
It's not a dramatic amount more bandwidth. It's only a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
45 megahertz in the 5 gigahertz band. So not a lot.
But if you have a product that requires that, because you assumed that you were going to get it through.
Speaking of things that have hidden meanings or hidden consequences, I guess. Vice has an article, which is how the U.S. military buys location data from ordinary apps. A Muslim prayer app with over 98 million downloads. Turns out that was a vehicle for surveillance by the U.S. government. Why is
You're wondering why you would need that? Well, it tells you when to pray and what direction Mecca is based on where you are. So for that, you get surveilled constantly.
I wonder if the direction to Mecca, if they take into account, like if it's just a cardinal direction, or if it takes into account the curvature of the Earth, knowing that you could, like the shortest distance might actually be, a parabola.
I think it's a as the bird flies type of thing with that, right? I think in terms of launching prayers, you don't worry about that kind of thing. They can penetrate through the Earth.
Now you might be thinking this is just this one prayer app is how this happened, right? No, it's a library. A lot of companies that offer free libraries, it's a little bit monkey's paw, a little bit needful things where it's like, here, you take this. And it's like, oh, there was an unintended consequence of that. So an unintended consequence of the location library is that your location may be shared with other people, and also the app in which it got the location. So in this case, it was select a location from database where app equal Muslim prayer app. It's like, where are all these people praying?
They had a couple of other ones too. So it's not just Muslims they're tracking everyone.
Yeah.
And some of the other apps are more generic. So don't think that just because it's like, oh, well, I'm not one of those people, this doesn't affect me. It very well could.
Yeah, this literally affects everybody. Most of the applications on Android are really data sharey, which is perhaps very bad. So, our next article. This is awesome. The Pentagon expects to fail another audit, but says progress is being made. Your tax dollars at work. So it turns out that the Pentagon spends so much money that it has no idea how much it spends or where everything else actually goes. So
I love their argument here. It's like, look, we spend $2.9 trillion a year. You can't keep track of that.
it's true. Even if you could keep track of that, even if you built some sort of amazing super application that was able to use AI and actually track all of the contracts in and out of MoCAS, for DFAS, that even if you had that, they're like, wow, this is really scary. You're really exposing where the bodies are buried. We should definitely not use this. It's really frustrating.
I don't think they run the pallets of hundreds through that.
I wonder what the invoice for that looks like. It's like, we're going to need another number 37 on the ground in Baghdad, stat. It's like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
I like in this article too, they're like, we've made a lot of progress, but because of the thing, the pandemic, we can't be expected to do our jobs.
Yeah, they've never passed one, but it's the pandemic.
Yeah.
No, if you dig into this and you dig into the whole government contracting thing, like, I'm surprised that whoever wrote the article really didn't do their homework here, because the last round of that, they fired a ton of people that handle the information systems into that because they were like self-dealing and double dealing. I mean, it was a huge mess. So this is pretty much par for the course, I guess. I don't know.
I think the reason they didn't do that is because NextGov likes the level of access that they have, and they know they will lose that.
Yeah, so that's fun. Our next article. After 12,523 replacement, feds investigate Tesla media control unit failures. After about 3,000 write cycles, its eMMC NAND flash memory complete failure occurs. Now, you may be thinking this is a repeat. We've actually covered this before, but this the last time this came up, Tesla said, "Oh no, we pushed a firmware update to mitigate this issue because what was happening was tons and tons of log files were being generated by the Teslas, and that was wearing out the flash prematurely because, in the beginning they didn't log a bunch of stuff, and now they log everything." So, woo? Did I lose you guys?
No, you covered it.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I don't know. I mean, what else is there? We've covered this before, but the new thing is like, okay, now they're being investigated.
And then, some bribes will happen and it won't matter.
I guess. I don't know. Next up is the Michigan news. University of Michigan.edu. Extremely aggressive internet censorship spreads in the world's democracies. Do you think maybe, it's interesting this is coming out of Michigan?
I had the same thought. I was like, oh, is this coming from those people?
But they don't list the U.S. as one of those. I mean, they kind of give a little bit of lip service. It's like, yeah, the U.S. maybe, but no, they list Norway, Japan, Italy, India, Israel, and Poland.
Yeah. And it's really to do with DNS filtering and all that stuff. It's like, hey, for surprisingly well-developed and educated countries, things are crazy. But if you look at Cuba, everything is like rampant piracy in Cuba. You can get anything, even though their internet connection is kind of crappy.
And this guy, Ram Sundara Raman, who is the University of Michigan doctoral candidate who's doing this, he points out something that we talk about with all of the horrible stories. We're seeing that many countries start with legislation that compels ISPs to block something that's obviously bad, like child pornography or pirated content, but then it just keeps going.
Yeah. That's definitely not happened here. Oh, wait.
We literally can't say the name of the thing that is ravaging the world.
Well, that's not the government doing that. That's something else. But,
That's YouTube's aggressive monetization policy.
But still, I mean, it's kind of funny that, I got I would say an R-rated ad the other day, and it's like, wow, really? YouTube? Double standard much? Okay.
That used to be the norm on the internet. Do you remember that? Like all the pop-up ads, and it was always like for pornography sites.
Yeah.
And then that went away, and now we're back to it.
Yeah. Well, good news out of Canada, at least. Companies could face hefty fines under new Canadian privacy law.
Sorry.
Rue's excited about that.
Rue hates Canadian privacy.
Rue has no sense of personal space, so that tracks for her.
Navdeep Bains is introduced the Digital Charter Implementation Act. I was a little surprised here. The fines are $25 million or 5% of your gross revenue, something like that. Global revenue, 5% or 25, whichever is greater. So, yeah, you're a small mom and pop shop and you don't follow the rules. $25 million.
And it gets rid of that whole thing where they can sort of just snow blind you with a giant wall of text to get you to agree with your. It's like, hey, we can sell your data, right? It also flat out bans certain sales of data. Like you can't even agree to it. So that's probably good.
So it's kind of nice compared to here, where everything's for sale.
Yeah, I don't know if you could really. I don't know how you would do business with those companies and opt out. I mean, this seems like something where Facebook would just nope out of Canada.
But there, I mean, that noose is tightening though, because like a lot of nations are introducing laws like this.
Yeah, but you'd still be better off. Because I mean, 25 million every time you break that, and Facebook's probably breaking it every 30 seconds.
Yeah. What a mess. Let's see. Okay, our next story. The UK should revisit the 5G ban now that Trump is defeated, says Huawei. The fox really should be let in the hen house now that the guard dog is away. I don't know. It's not the best analogy.
Well, this is straight up. I put this in government. It's really just the guy from Huawei trying to do a little lobbying here, I think. Yeah. But I wonder if maybe he'll get a little traction because I think Trump's threats were a huge part of this whole thing.
Well, the UK found, that it was dangerously insecure. It still remains to be seen. Is it dangerously insecure because of shoddy engineering or dangerously insecure because of Communist Party influence? Those things may not be mutually exclusive.
He's arguing that, hey, you said yourself this is going to set you back like 5 years. Why don't we just pretend that never happened?
I think it's a matter of strategy. It is really interesting to turn capitalism in on itself, though. I mean, if you're willing to build a company, like if you're willing to use nation-state resources, a wealthy nation-state at that, to invest nation-state resources in a company that on the face of it looks to be competing capitalistically, but in reality is not competing capitalistically, that is a really interesting way to make capitalism eat itself.
Kind of like pretending that you have this really amazing manufacturing base and secretly you're making tanks and planes. There was a guy that did that.
Yeah. Speaking, that may be like foreshadowing for the next thing, which is Asia has formed the world's biggest trade bloc. Asia as a single unit. Not really. It kind of makes sense when you read the article, because when I read this headline, it was just like, what? A China-backed group excluding the U.S. So this is RCEP, I think, is how this is pronounced. And it may cement China's position more firmly as an economic partner with Southeast Asia, Japan, and Korea. See, what the U.S. has been doing is sort of been sowing seeds of dissent among all these Asian countries, but we can kind of try to be friends with them all, in the U.S. But yeah, I don't. This is probably good economically, but the U.S. One of the things they cited was like the U.S. is going to be struggling with recovery from this thing for a while, and we need to get our economies back on track because we've already dealt with that, which is maybe not untrue. Okay, I'll go. Moving right along.
I don't really have anything else to say. I mean, I guess, it sounds scary by the headline where it's like excluding the US, but I mean, we have, North American trade agreements that don't include countries from Asia. So, I mean, is that really a big deal?
Oh, China's getting more power. Pretty soon they're not going to be using the dollar for all of their foreign. We can't have that. Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Massive China state-funded hack hits companies around the world, the report says. Attackers are linked to Cicada, a group believed to be funded by the Chinese state. So this article talks a little bit about some of the recent vulnerabilities and how they have been exploited, targeting companies around the world. This is kind of what happens in like a metagame. It's like there's a security issue that is found, and then there's groups like Cicada that have a short list of all the companies they wanted in. And they can't break into them because those companies do their security reasonably well. So they just wait for a vulnerability to be discovered in something those companies use or something that those companies have that's exposed to the internet. And the second that vulnerability drops, they try to exploit it. And maybe they can outrun the administrators inside those companies to gain access inside the network.
Does Cicada only pop up every 17 years?
That would be nice, but as it stands, there's just sort of a background hum of insanity from them all the time.
They pop up when a new vulnerability is found.
Is it always 17 years, or is it like every 3 years? I think it depends on the type, right?
Yeah, it's usually a prime number, but not always. Spooky. I don't know. This didn't really seem to be, like, did you get anything else out of this? Because it didn't really seem to have a lot of new information. It's more just like, if you don't understand the whole, 0-day exploit thing, there's this thing that's going on that's sort of becoming like the MO for how state-sponsored malware stuff, sort of gets a foothold in different industries.
Yeah, well, I think it's partly that and partly, like the Chinese threat is a great headline.
Yeah.
Because is it really, though? I mean, do they just want... Some of the threats here are not trying to do economic sabotage as much as they are trying to make sure that they're abreast of all Western intellectual property so they can then exploit that commercially, which is maybe a different thing. It's like they don't want to wreck our nuclear power plants and make our power grid go crazy. They just want to know exactly how to build the latest Nikes, I guess. They probably
want both of those things.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they wouldn't mind having in their back pocket just in case that war ever starts.
We need the secret formula for Coke. Quick. Send pictures of, somebody's daughter to themselves or something.
Mods are asleep. Send Coke recipe.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is a rare bit of good news, maybe. Google is rolling out end-to-end encryption for RCS and Android Messages beta. This entire article is almost entirely about how much trouble Android had getting regular carriers to do literally anything with regard to SMS security. That makes me sad that there's confirmation that it's as terrible as it seems on the surface.
And will Apple swallow their pride and take on Google's technology?
For end-to-end encryption?
Right, for RCS.
I don't know. There's still a weird situation where if you've got an iPhone and you've got iMessage, and then you do away with your iPhone, unless you disenroll the iPhone from iMessage, anybody that's got an iPhone that's sending you messages, the messages just go to a black hole. You don't get them on your phone. And Apple's like, yeah, that's by design. So,
Well, it's secure. You can't argue that it's not.
I like the example text they have here. Did you catch the game? Yes. It was so fun to watch. I know it was such a close game. So happy we won.
That could have been code, Krista. That could have been like, the Capistrano flies south through the winter, and it's like, yes. The north wind blows, and it's like, that's like a counter exchange for like a spy thing. I mean, come on. I don't know. Sorry, this episode of the news is terrible. I'm trying. I'm trying to keep it together.
Are you robo-tripping yet?
No, if I had some, I probably would, though. Starting next year, Chrome extensions will show you what data they collect from users. The only thing that I can think of reading this article was, why doesn't it do it now?
It takes time to roll out such an amazing thing. If you go down to the bullet points there, I do love that they are now saying, no matter what, you can't do these 3 things. Which, again, why did this take this long?
Why? Yeah. That rant that I do about every 3 weeks, where it's like, Android, Java sandboxes, why? And Google's like, yeah, we're getting around to it. The use or transfer of user data for personalized advertising. That was okay up till now.
How many extensions do you think this makes no longer commercially viable?
All of them. You can't monetize it any other way. Like, you can't have a subscription. It can't be a paid extension.
What is Muslim Pro going to do?
Sell your location data to the U.S. government.
But you're not allowed to do that. I guess that's an app, not an extension.
Yeah, I wonder if some version of that is not prohibited by these terms of service. That's kind of funny. I don't know. You know what else the terms of service prohibits? Using a bad password. But, well, ZDNet has the article about the worst passwords of 2020 show that we are just as lazy about security ever. Can't we do any better than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? So with blogs like Troy Hunt's blog and the Have I Been Pwned thing, they are able to look through all of the passwords from all of these leaks, because people will crack the passwords. And the passwords are still terrible. Like the new fresh leaks of 2020, the passwords are all bad.
Like MAGA 2020.
So what is number 10 there is the new one on the list. Senha. I'm assuming that's a foreign language?
Yeah, that is weird.
Engagement challenge?
You know what? I have Google here. I could look it up.
Picture 1 is also popular. What does that mean?
Oh yeah. It's Portuguese for password.
Wow.
Perfect. Time to crack it, 10 seconds.
Well, this shows that we might not have any security, but we have diversity. Also, I like that Pokemon was in the top 25.
Why Portuguese, though? Like, I would think that would be a fairly small percentage of...
Maybe it's one of those...
people who speak Portuguese. Maybe I'm imagining that.
Maybe it's one of those words that's shared in Spanish and Portuguese.
Oh, yeah, maybe. That would make more sense.
What a mess. The Register has our next story, which is Micropayments company Coil distributes new privacy policy with an email that put the users' addresses in the to field. So they sent their entire list of users to their email list server provider thing, and so the to field contained thousands of different users. So if you got an email from Coil saying, hey, we changed your privacy policy, you learned about thousands of other users of Coil, which is sort of the opposite of privacy.
Do you think this... I mean, they probably used an external email service for this, right?
Yes.
So do you think this was a situation where, like, the developers, they're like, okay, here's the list, and here's our draft, and the staff was like, no, we have to touch that up a little bit, and then the staff sent it? Or do you think this was a mistake from lower down?
It's hard for me to imagine that they have a mailing list service that would let you send a to message to this many people, because most of the ones that I'm familiar with literally will not let you do this. This is kind of like, Visa sending everybody an Excel spreadsheet with like, here's the spreadsheet of everybody's credit card numbers. Find yours. Good luck.
Yeah, it definitely gives you, because when you go to the Pwn database, for example, let's say you pull it off the dark web, and you're like, all right, I got this person's email address and I've got their password, but where do I attack? And now you know exactly which website to attack.
Yeah. Sort of a big oops in terms of privacy there. Speaking of things that don't make any sense, Reuters has this article, which is Apple hits back at European activist that complains against tracking tool. So what was your takeaway from this? Because mine was basically that he's got a point and Apple is being very pedantic.
Well, I think maybe he does. So this is about the IDFA, the advertising identifier. And he's saying, because of the advertising identifier, you are tracking me because everything I do on my iPhone is that. But what Apple is saying is, hey, we read your laws really, really closely, and we're very confident that we are not breaking them. So I think they both could be right, maybe.
He's saying that if you have this identifier and applications can access it, then it will be abused. So why do you have it? And Apple is saying it's not against the law to have the identifier, only to use it. And it seems that argument comes across as disingenuous to me.
And they're also saying that we don't track it the way that you're describing. They're not saying that no one else can do that, but they're saying they don't do that.
Yeah, so seems like if Apple were in a position to, I don't know, suppose you had like an iPhone, and if you were within proximity of an iPhone, you could send it a malformed message to cause the battery to explode. Technically, I guess Apple wouldn't be responsible for the battery exploding, but they could do just the most tiny, minor amount of work to block receiving that kind of messages, and then the battery doesn't explode anymore. Seems like they should do that.
I don't think that's a good analogy. I think the better analogy would be, I could load and rack the slide on a pistol and put it down in the daycare, but it's not my responsibility what would happen with that pistol.
So what you're saying is app developers are petulant children? Because I would agree with that.
I would say irresponsible adults, right? Like,
or just criminals. I mean, we've seen plenty of that.
It's just, it's a mess. Got another Apple story in the Apple block, which is Mac certificates check stokes fears that Apple logs every app that you run. We reported on this last week, and it turns out that these hashes that are going to Apple in an unencrypted fashion are not for individual applications. They go with the developer. And this article doesn't cover a lot of really important aspects of that. But the one aspect that it does cover is to say, no, Apple's not getting your applications. They're just getting the developer that you're running. And it does kind of point out that, for things like Tor and Firefox and stuff like that, you can kind of figure out which application somebody is running because there's not a ton of applications running with a particular certificate fingerprint.
This was very apologist.
Yes.
I wonder if maybe somebody at Apple has a relationship with Dan Gooden and they made a phone call.
Yeah. I don't understand why Apple wouldn't, like, the list of revoked certificates can't be that big. Why wouldn't you just send that to, like, devices check in, like, on a daily basis or a couple of times a day, and you just add and remove the certificates that have been blacklisted? That seems like that would be way less traffic and way less invasive and way better from a technical standpoint than sending information to Apple literally every time you do anything. This article also seems to say that it does that same kind of checking. Safari does that same kind of checking when you load a web browser for a web page. And it was like, wait, Apple is also checking your SSL certificates in real time and it's not updating. Oh, that seems like a mess. I guess
now I'm down the Dan Gooden rabbit hole in the same way that we often look at Kyle Wigger's profile.
Dan Gooden is a shadow of the man that Kyle Wiggers is. How dare you even suggest?
Dan Gooden is a security editor at Ars Technica, journalist with more than 15 years of experience. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in English.
Yeah, he's definitely got one of those M1 MacBook Airs on the way.
Probably several.
We'll talk about those more in the business section, but
Dan Gooden's Christmas shopping is complete.
All right.
Did you think he managed to get a PS5?
No,
No, because
one
Apple
did.
doesn't sell those.
Yeah.
That's true. Maybe you could trade the Apple.
Speaking of data breaches, software vendor says data breach exposed nearly 28 million Texas driver's license records. This was on the Hill. There wasn't really a lot. I guess it's just, it's like, oh, another week, another breach. This is our breach of the week, I guess. Yeah,
Well,
got a
this
driver's
was
license.
another third-party company. It wasn't them. They were quick to point out, it's like, no, we didn't lose this.
But we did
It was
sell
a
those
third
data
party.
to the third-party company.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, do you think maybe we shouldn't have sold that data? Should have anonymized it just a little bit before we sold it? No.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's another, that's going to be another column in the old dark web profile that you have. It's going to be real easy to steal your identity.
Technically, our next post is just a write-up about a breach, but this breach didn't happen this week. I think we reported on this as it was happening. Gosh, it's been several months ago, but the extent of the breach was not known because it was so complete. But Threat Post has the write-up. Millions of hotel guests worldwide caught in a mass data leak. So it turns out a lot of hotels use the same software for managing stuff, cloud hospitality. They were compromised thoroughly and completely. So 1 month's data was 24.4 gig. And this is not the first time. Some of the records go back to 2013.
I don't think they were even compromised, were they? I think it was just open.
Yeah, they had an S3 bucket that had information in it. But yeah, this time
With
was just a bucket.
No password.
Yeah. What a mess.
Well, maybe on the bright side, people aren't really traveling this year. Maybe there's less stuff to be breached. Maybe.
No, it had
But-
a lot of data from August. That was what was surprised. The article talked
Oh.
about how they found a bunch of, and it was like, oh, a lot of people were traveling in August.
I thought it went, it goes back to 2013.
Some
Oh,
of it
yeah.
does, yeah. But most of the data was from 180,000 records from August 2020 alone. Yeah, that's what I was remembering. So, yeah, that's a breach. What do we got for tomorrow? Business and...
I've instantly
already-
forgotten.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it's robot. Yeah, business and robot.
Business and robot. Oh, we got a lot of robot. Flippy's doing exceptionally well.
2020's year of Flippy.
It
Wait,
really
wait.
is.
We don't have a Flippy story. What are you talking about?
We do.
We
Don't
do?
we? I thought we did.
Oh, wait, are we lying?
I don't remember a Flippy story.
I wonder
You know what?
if,
Looking at the one tab now, I don't know that we do have a Flippy story. You might be thinking of last week.
I got sucked. No, I know which one it is now. It was one of our other robot stories. And there's a Flippy follow-up in like the bottom or the corner or something. He's wearing like a fabric sock. And it's like, oh, he makes 19 items and blah, blah, blah. And he's installed in like a moving rack, but he's got a fabric sock. And it was a follow-up to a story that we did a couple of weeks ago. And they're really happy with Flippy. So maybe that won't be in the robot section, but it's fun.
Well, what kind of monster wouldn't be happy with Flippy?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first version of Flippy wasn't that great. All Flippy could do was flip. But now he can make onion rings and all kinds of things. So, I don't know.
That's more than I could do.
Did you come out of the womb walking? No.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.